clashes at the coast, which depressed the market, the tourist market, and most of our pork is dependent on the tourist market. So I had to think, what can we do to make our farmers get profit? And I developed a message to be able to make sure that Kenyans eat pork. Because before that, pork was a very rare meat or a very rare meal on our tables. But after 1997, we went around the country making sure that people are able to eat pork. And we used demonstrations, we used field days, we used cooking so that people can know how to cook pork. And after that, we were able to increase our local market instead of depending on external market or depending on the tourists. And after that, I got an opportunity to coordinate a World Bank program that was dealing with arid areas. And in that World Bank program where I was leading or was coordinating in West Pokot, we were dealing with communities. And basically, we are dealing with what's called community development approach, where the communities are the ones saying what they want. And what the community say is what we implement. And I think from that, I developed an experience on how to deal with communities, community mobilization, participatory approaches, and community participation, so that they're able to make sure the communities have a greater role, have a center role in developing their own needs, raising their own needs, and developing their own development agenda. And that community mobilization and what we call stakeholder mapping, I had the opportunity to map all the stakeholders so that we can work together to bring up, to make sure that the communities are well endowed, the communities are well trained to participate in their own development. And I think that's a key area which I can bring to the commission, that community mobilization and participatory way of doing things to make sure that the communities are involved in what we are doing. But in the commission now, to make sure that the voters and other stakeholders are involved in what the commission does. In West Pokot also, I introduced camels, whereby there were no camels in that region, but because of the drought, the recurrent droughts, I decided that in order to have food, because people are dependent on this relief food, every year relief food. I said, no, we can't continue like this. Why don't we have drought-tolerant animals that are able to withstand those areas? And I introduced those camels, and today, if we go to that area, you find that the issue of relief is almost zero. People don't depend on relief because those camels, they can grow on, and they can do well on any environment. They are able to produce enough milk. They can also sell. Camels are very expensive. Today, one camel is almost more over 100,000. So they can also sell and still feed their families and educate their children. And along the way, also, we had there was a program which we developed called National Agriculture and Livestock Extension Program. After I left the arid lands, I came to Nairobi. We developed extension approaches whereby we were using to carry out extension services. And along the way, I got an opportunity to be nominated as a member of Transition Authority. And in Transition Authority, we were dealing with facilitating transition to developed system of government. After the promulgation of our Constitution of 2010, the promulgation the Constitution created two levels of government, the national government and the county governments. The national government was the former central government. So we had an opportunity to transist this nation from that centralized system of government to the devolved system of government where we have today. And my thematic area at the Transition Authority is development of the financial system within the counties. I spearheaded development of the finance system in the counties I spearheaded the treasuries, creation of treasuries in the counties, creation of financial systems in the counties, together with the National Treasury. I was a key lead person in those areas. So what I learned is that this was a new program. And using my knowledge on program management, I have had a lot of extensive experience on project management. Using my knowledge on project management, it gave me an opportunity to know that transition to devolved system of government is just like any other project that I have coordinated for all this for over 25 years. So that gave me an impetus to know that we can be able to make it. And I think we made it to where we left. Because, however, the time was very short, but at least we made sure that most functions which were being held by the national government went to the counties. Most structures were developed in the county government. The governors were up and running because these were new systems. And we had an opportunity to train those governors to know what was their roles and what the laws talks about. And something that really I feel it was interesting that when we got into Transition Authority, we were given 5 laws to implement. And developing those laws, translating those laws, and some of us are not lawyers, translating those laws until they are practically used by in the counties or in the government, was a big achievement that I feel as a person. That's what I've achieved. And the other thing that I feel that I've been able to bring to the Commission is the issue I've talked of public participation and community mobilization, which is critical in voter training and education. I also had an opportunity involved in the development of civic education manual. The civic education manual was training the communities or the citizens to know their rights. And it touched all aspects of the Constitution, from devolution, finance management, even legislation, elections, and all the parts of the Constitution. So I had an opportunity to be involved in that development of that manual that is currently being used in civic education in this country. So what I'm saying is that it was a great time in my life, an experience in my life that gave me a lot of interest in working with communities. And number 2, along the way, I've been involved in elections. I've been a presiding officer for the last, thank you, Madam. I've been a presiding officer in most of these elections, starting with the Q14, the Mlolongo of 1988, and I've seen our election grow up to where we are today, and that gives me an interest to serve in the electoral body. And finally, currently, we are working with communities in the Northeastern and Turkana as my livestock specialist in a project funded by World Bank, dealing with communities. I've been hosting refugees for the last 25 years and trying to integrate them. Some people became refugees and were Kenyans. That was one of the challenges we had. When refugees came to this country, the citizens felt that the refugees were being treated better than them, so they registered themselves as refugees. And today, the Ministry of Interior is working to reintegrate our Kenyans who registered themselves as refugees to become Kenyans. So we are working with those host communities to bring up their development agenda and to make sure that they are integrated. So the government is working towards integrating them. And Madam Chair, I've seen your name. And I think, let me stop at that so that I can give time to the people. Maybe, Madam Chair, one thing is that I have experienced there's a lot of insecurity in those areas, but I have a lot of experience on dealing with insecurity in those northeastern areas. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muket. You'll have an opportunity to share more as we ask you questions. I have a question for you. Are you a registered voter?
Yes, I'm a registered voter. I voted the last election in a place called Kokwapelekwa Primary School, Leland Ward, Pokot South constituency, West Pokot County.
Thank you so much. I'll now request Mr. Morris Kimuli to ask you a few questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Bwana Muket.
Yes, sir.
I can see you have very high qualifications in pig production. This is a Master of Science.
Yes.
In pig production.
Yes.
There's a question I've always had in my mind. I don't know whether they taught you that in college. Which is the best way of cooking pork?
The best way of cooking pork is frying.
Just fry?
Yeah.
Hakuna maji?
Hakuna maji.
Usiweke maji?
Usiweke maji.
Lakini hiyo asomeshi kule?
Wapi?
Hiyo unajifunza huku kando kando tu?
Hiyo wanasomesha.
Wanasomesha kule?
Wakati nilikuwa UK nilisomeshwa.
There is another debate that we have been having, and now that you are an expert, and a public interview is also an opportunity to educate members of the public.
Yes.
You can now confirm that from an expert in animal production, the gizzard is a preserve of the male folk. You can confirm that?
Among communities. In some communities in this country.
Scientifically?
Not.
Is there anything scientific
no, there is no scientific.
Makes the gizzard a preserve of men?
No, there is no scientific.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a by the way. You know, as men, we like to believe that the gizzard is ours. I have seen that you have worked with pastoralist communities.
Yes, most
You know, their defining nature is that most of them move from place to place in search of pasture and water for their livestock. If you become a commissioner, what do you think would be the best policy to put in place to ensure that pastoralist communities are integrated in our voting registration, and they can exercise their rights to vote? Bearing in mind that in Kenya, voting takes place on a single day.
Thank you, Mr. Kimoli. Pastoralists, as you rightly put, they move from place to place in search of pasture and water. And regardless of the voting, regardless of the elections, they still move. Because their interest is to make sure that they have food. So election is like a secondary to their lifestyle. So what I feel as a specialist in that area, and now if I join the commission, what I feel is that we'll be able to develop a policy what can allow what you call mobile voting system. Because they stay in one place and they move as a team, as a group, such that even if they were registered in a particular area, they still move to another area. So it is, if we can develop a policy that we have a mobile voting system, such that we get to know where the people currently are, so that we can move to where they are. And we'll be able to encourage them to make sure they vote. Like the voting gadgets, and the voting day becomes a polling center, that place where they are. And then, but it requires a policy with involvement of all stakeholders, so that there is no stakeholder that will feel the polling station has moved. But those areas, we kept the stakeholders, the people there, the leaders, and everybody else to understand why the Electoral Commission is doing that.
You know that our system of elections is based on electoral units.
Yes.
And they are delimited.
Yes.
So if pastoralists move from one electoral unit into the next, how do you deal with that?
If they move to the next, depending on where they were registered, which electoral unit were they registered? So if they were registered in one particular electoral unit, the same people, even if they are voting, for example, if they are registered in here, this is, I don't know, this is Tare, and they move to Westlands, It's the same people whom we registered here in Stare, that polling station, and they have moved to a polling somewhere in Westland, so you can still move the gadget and they register to that place. So that as they vote for that particular electoral area where they were registered. But as I said, it requires a lot of policy shift and understanding and participation.
Now, you have said you've been involved in the electoral process for quite a number of years.
Yes.
Do you know the practical situation now? How do pastoralist communities exercise their right to vote as we speak today?
As we speak today, those who are around, they just come and vote. And that's why at times you find that the turn up during the election day, depending on what period of the year, the turn up during the election day may be low, because some of them may have moved. So it's only those who are registered in particular polling center or polling station that will come in those areas and vote. So the challenge is that you'll find that if half of them have moved to
now,
yes.
When I look at your CV, on your achievements, you said at number 7, and it is in bold, which means that you gave it some level of significance. You successfully presided over general elections of 1988, that's Mulolongo.
Yes.
1992, the first multi-party elections under Moi. 1997, hotly contested, leading to IPPG reforms because they were deemed to be unfair. 2002, 2007, Kenyans went to war with each other. Why do you think you still need the prefix, the adjective successfully?
Because I was a presiding officer, and my polling station where I was, there were no challenges. There was nothing that came out of my polling station or irregularities that came out of that polling station, because I was in charge of that polling station, and the voting was smooth. And even when in 2007, when there were problems in this nation, there were no challenges. And even all the polling stations that I have been a presiding officer, there has never been, even if their petition it has never touched those polling stations.
So even for 1988, you would still be comfortable to use that adverb, successfully conducted.
Because that was the system that time.
That was the system.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You also served with the Transitional Authority.
Yes.
The Kinudi Wamangi Transitional Authority.
Yes.
And do you know the body that took over the functions of the Transitional Authority after you finished your work?
Yes, I know the body. Yes. There is a body called IGRTC in the Governmental Relations Technical Committee.
It's under the Intergovernmental Relations Act.
Yes.
And it creates a committee under Section 12B.
12B.
Now, it deals with relationships between the national government
and the
devolved units.
Yes.
Do you think, now being acquainted with this system, do you think there is an entry point for collaboration between IEBC and the regime and IGR?
They are stakeholders. The IGRTC can be stakeholders of the IEBC because they have a depository knowledge of the county government, or the relationship between the national government and the county government. So, as a stakeholder, there are still things which they can add value to the work of IEBC.
Like what?
One, under IGRTC, which is a committee, they have a closer relations with the county governments. They may know this, I don't know how to put it, but they know there are closer relations with the county governors, and they are able to also to assist the commission in reaching out to some of those areas which are not able to be reached.
Reaching out.
Yes.
Now, when devolution came, it also came with new administrative units.
Yes.
Do you know some of the new administrative units that came with devolution? Administrative.
Yes, they came up with what we call village village administrative units. They came up with the ward administrative units and sub-county
Administrative units.
Yes.
Anything else?
Pardon?
Anything else?
Anything else with what came with evolution?
Yes. Administrative units.
Administrative units?
Yes.
No, those ones are the ones which are stated in the law.
So how do these administrative units overlap with electoral units?
Most of the county government administrative units follow the electoral units, because we have the ward administrator, which is under the county government, and it's a ward it's an electoral unit. We have the sub-county, which
the ward as an administrative unit is
in the sub-county in the counties. It's an administrative unit.
The ward is an electoral unit. In the administration, it's called what?
It's ward.
It's ward.
Yes, ward.
What is a village?
A village is a place or the smallest area.
Is it an electoral unit?
No.
It's not an electoral unit.
It's not an electoral unit.
Then from the ward?
We have the constituency, which is equivalent to a sub-county.
Is equivalent to a sub-county?
Yes.
Okay. That's okay, you are right. Now, what happens if the office of a governor falls vacant?
If the office of a governor falls vacant, the deputy governor takes over.
The deputy governor takes over?
Yes.
What of circumstances where the vacancy is created because the election of the governor has been nullified by a court of law?
You know, when the election of the governor is nullified by the court of law, the deputy governor also ceases to be elected, because they are in the same paper. The deputy governor and the governor himself. If it is nullified by court of law, that they all go. The person who will take over is the Speaker of the County Assembly.
Yes.
For 60 days.
And what happens when a seat in Parliament is declared vacant?
When a seat is declared vacant by the Speaker, a writ is written to the chairman of IEBC to make sure that to declare the seat and organize by-elections.
In an election, you would normally have number 1 and number 2.
Yes.
Don't you think it would be more efficient financially and logistically to just take the next person who was number 2 if the seat is declared vacant? If he resigns or dies, can you just, instead of going for a by-election, can you just go for the next guy?
No, because, you know, elections, the people exercise their will. And when they elected me as number 1, they had trust in me, not the second person who became number 2. So the best thing is to allow them again to go and elect their person who they trust. Yes, because if they wanted this number 2, they could have elected him.
But are you aware that there are some countries that do not do by-elections?
Maybe I'm not aware.
You're not aware?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimuli. I'll request Dr. F.S. Abdallah to ask you some questions, Simeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Muket.
Yes, sir.
I was prepared to talk to you or to have a conversation on electoral matters and IEBC and all that. But hearing you talk this morning with all the passion you have on animals and how to cook them and all that, I decided that you allow me to have a conversation on the animal husbandry first. Right, then we go to the other matters.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Muket, this conversation, of course, in no way I'm trying to say that you did not qualify to apply or you don't qualify to be the next commissioner of IEBC, right? I'm just having this a conversation to start with so we can learn and all of us in Kenya can learn, and then we go to the, because you showed a lot of passions. Now, tell me, Mr. Muket, are you aware that the revival of KMC and the KDF?
Yes, I'm aware.
Right.
Yes.
Are you also aware that the government of Kenya has intentions of putting another arbiter in Lamu and in all other counties?
There are many abattoirs coming up in many counties. Yeah.
So there's a lot of potential in revamping and modernizing the abattoirs, and where your expertise will be needed quite, maybe you'll be in demand in the next year or so, right? Mr. Muket, please educate us. Is it true that our cows or our livestock, which normally used to be taken to KMC, I'm referring to KMC because that was the famous one, was between 120 to 150 kilos? There was no feeding lots being developed in this country for many years.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dr. Abdallah, for that question. Our cattle, mainly earlier on, especially when KMC was functioning well, most of them came from these asal areas. And most of the cattle in asal areas are indigenous. They don't grow much. So you may be right to say that they were between 150, 180. Maximum could have even been 200. That is dead weight.
Okay.
So it may have been right because most of the cattle came from those areas, pastoral areas, and they are indigenous animals which do not grow as fast as those exotic animals that we have
fast
introduced.
as, but they could.
Yeah, they could, but genetically, they are not meant. They are not
go
meant
to 280 to 300.
Yes, if you feed them well, and also maybe crossbreed them with other genes.
And also having the feeding loads right to the facilities would help.
Yes.
Like the one who is supposed to be in Bachuma and all that. And is it, I've been made to believe that the cattle in Turkey are between 340 to 400 kilos?
The cattle in Turkey?
Turkey.
In?
Turkey. It's a big industry, the abattoirs, and
yes.
That is big, yeah?
Yeah, because most of the cattle are exotic cattle and these beef animals, because we have beef breeds and then non-beef breeds. So when we have the actual beef breeds, like Aberdeen Angus, Hereford, and Blackhead, so you find that those animals are big. They weigh up to 1,000 kilos live weight. So when you slaughter, you get around 400, 500.
Right. So is it also true that 36% to 40% of a cow is the meat? 36 to 40%?
It's about 40, depending on the breed.
Right. I didn't train like you. I'm just.
I know you are not trained, but depending on the breed, the percentage is between 40, 45, maximum 50.
Right. Okay. So the discussion I'm having is because I thought that we need to develop also the 60%. You know, the 60% which normally has been rendered in other countries. In here, I think we don't have that industry.
Yeah, we can still develop up to between 55 to 60%, because generally there's a maximum that you can develop to. Because because the more you develop, even the cow, the meat, also the other waste, the other offals also increase. So you find that the ratio still may remain the same.
Right. Okay, thank you for that knowledge. Now, Mr. McCate, the IEBC, right? Where does the Commissions get its funds from?
The primary source of Commission fund is the government, is the government being budgeted through the National Treasury and Parliament. So that's the primary source of funding. But they can also get funding from other sources like development partners. For example, when we interacted with them when I was in the Transition Authority, some development partners, especially UNDP, were funding the IEBC. And those development partners, they only fund specific activity of the Commission. For example, they can fund voter education as an activity of the Commission.
Right. So under the Act, the funds of the Commission may consist of any grants, gifts, donations, or other endowment given to the Commission. How, in your view, can the Commission safeguard its independence when it receives funding in the form of gifts, donation, or other endowments?
One of the areas that the Commission can be able to safeguard their independence, they had created what we call IEBC fund. And such that to be able to keep your independence, all the funds should come into one source. So that even if it is UNDP who brought it, it is the government who brought it, they are put in one particular basket, so that it is used as IEBC funds. And in that, there is no particular person who will take credit for the funding of IEBC. Because if a particular person takes credit for this funding, it can easily influence the activities of the IEBC. But if the funds are put in a basket of so many partners, there will be no particular person who can be able to say, because they may not know how much I gave, how much so-and-so gave, and that will be able to safeguard the independence so that they are able to manage their resources as IEBC.
Right, that funding, that basket is already there, and it's called the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Fund.
Yes.
Right. Now, who administers this fund? Who administers this fund?
The CEO of the commission is the one in charge of the funds, because he's the accounting officer.
Is the funds of the IBC subject to audit by the Auditor General?
Yes, because it's a public fund. They get the money from public, so they are subjected to the audit by the Auditor General.
And when is this supposed to be done?
The auditing?
Yes. When is the IBC finished their part and goes to the Auditor General?
Of course, after every financial year, which ends in June, auditing starts immediately. In most cases, it starts around August, September, after they have developed what's called after they have submitted the finance statement to the Auditor General, and they come and audit.
Every 3 months after?
After?
3 months after the
yes,
financial
3 months
year.
after the financial year. But this year they have started early.
Because they need the funds. Thank you very much, Mr. Muket. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. F.S. Abdallah. I will now request Mr. Gideon Solonka to ask some questions.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Muket, my first question will be that the Constitution provides for the membership of the county assemblies by setting out 4 categories of members of the assembly. Maybe you can tell us, you can take us through the 4 categories of members?
The membership of the county assemblies, we have the elected members, we have the nominated members, which we normally call them top-ups. They are ones which were, because what we call affirmative actions, and we have the nominated members for the disabled and the youth. And then now, the speaker is also a member of the county assembly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how are members, elected members, how are they elected?
They are elected during the general election from a ward.
From a ward?
Yes.
Okay. How about the special seat members?
The special seat members are allotted to political parties, which they, before election, they submit what we call their party list to the IEBC, and then IEBC now, they provide the list in what we call priority, yes, from 1 to maybe 10 or 12, depending on the number of nomination, and then IEBC now takes the first one, the second, depending on how many seats that political party got in the county assembly.
Okay. Take me through how members of marginalized groups, how are they elected?
Members of marginalized groups, there are several marginalized groups, like the disabled, most of them are marginalized. and even maybe women, they call themselves marginalized, although I don't know. But most of them are given a slot. It's what called affirmative action for the marginalized groups. So they are given a special nomination so that when the parties are giving out their list, they also include those marginalized groups in that party list.
And what would the political party consider in appointing these marginalized group members?
In the political parties, one, they consider also maybe disability. Yes. Number two, they consider the communities in those particular in those counties, such that if there are communities who are marginalized, for example, if you go to there are communities like Ogiek, there are other communities which are marginalized, they are given consideration.
And the culture?
Culture also, I think, plays a role.
Okay, thank you. What are the qualifications for election as a member of a county assembly?
Qualification of a member of a county assembly is that he should be a Kenyan citizen.
Yes.
Above the age of 18. Mm-hmm. Number two, he should also be sound mind, a person of sound mind, and then is able to read and write. That's one of the qualifications. Okay. Currently? Yes.
And are there any educational standards that have been set for MCAs?
Now there is a bill, there is a law, which is in Parliament, they want to amend it or not amend it, which is setting education standard to be a graduate.
With a degree?
Yes, with a degree.
And what is your take about that? Do you support that MCAs should be holders of degrees? Were you to be an IEBC commissioner?
It will depend on the areas where people come from. There are some of these areas where people have not gone to school. Does it mean that they will not have leaders? They will have. There are areas which are well endowed with people who are educated. Now, 60-70% of the people have maybe a diploma and above. Yes. So we are my take is that it should be. There should be consideration in some areas, because one, election, democracy is the will of the people, and the people should elect the person they feel will represent them well. For example, in my county, there is an MCA who has been there from time immemorial. I never went to school, but he has been elected after every 5 years, from when they were councillors up to now. He never went to school. But people feel they have trust in him, and he represents them well.
So how will we as a country surmount that challenge that we have areas where people have not maybe had that opportunity of going to school? They don't have graduates at the degree level. So how will we address that issue as a country?
Well, as a country, we need to do what we call affirmative action when it comes to education, so that we encourage the people from those regions where they are not educated to go to school and provide the resources. For example, in Northeastern or even where I come from, in some parts of West Pokot where I come from, there are places where children have not gone to school. Because of one, the schools are not there. Two, even if they are there, their parents, they are moved, they are pastoralists, and they move. So one thing is that we have a policy to make sure that those areas are encouraged by building schools, especially boarding schools, and providing resources, teachers, and so on.
Thank you. Now let's move on. What are the disqualifications from being elected a member of a county assembly? Maybe you can give me like 6 of them.
Disqualification?
Yes.
One, if you have been declared bankrupt, you have a criminal case, you are of unsound mind, you also don't, you are not a Kenyan born. Those are 4. And also the other thing is that you may not have reached the age of voting, because there are some people at 18, at 17, they want to be elected, but they don't qualify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of this disqualification where somebody has served a sentence of imprisonment of at least 6 months.
6 months, yes.
Take this scenario where somebody has been convicted, okay, by a chief magistrate court for a bribery or corruption issues, related issues. But then this person has appealed to the High Court, and at the same time he wants to run for an election as an MCA. What is your take on that? Is he eligible?
Okay, let me also say another disqualification before I answer your question, is that if you have been banned because of election malpractices. So if somebody has been convicted by the chief magistrate and given maybe more than 6 months of imprisonment and appeals, the appeal, he has not exhausted all the processes. Until he exhausts all the processes is when we can disqualify him. So if he has appealed,
yes,
give him a chance. Because after all, if his appeal never goes through and is put in, he will still lose the seat.
So does the law allow that person to run?
Yes, give him a chance, because the appeal process has not been exhausted.
Okay. Thank you. And then lastly, maybe you can highlight some provisions of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that anchor our multi-party democracy.
Article 4,
Yes.
Sub-Article 2,
Yes.
says Kenya shall be a multi-party democracy.
Correct.
Yes.
Any other?
And so when you come to, I think it's around Article 81 or somewhere there, it talks about election should be in, it provides for parties, creates parties in our country. So there should be, there are parties. So that gives opportunity for parties to compete.
Article 91 on political parties?
Yeah, 91.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Bwana Muket.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Solonka. I'll now request Madam Elizabeth Mayo to ask you a few questions, Simeon.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Once more, good morning, Mr. Muket.
Good morning, Madam Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's okay. Just take your water,
Okay.
then we start. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Muket,
Yes, madam.
the next general election is just a few months away. I can put it as 12 months because July is just ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are appointed commissioner, what would you consider as your number one priority initiative that must be done before the next general election? And why should you consider it as your priority?
Yeah, my priority for the next general election is to make sure that the commission's decisions are acceptable to the people. And how do I make it? I've told you I have a lot of interest in what we call public participation. So the commission should make sure that whatever they do, the public know, because one of the challenges we have had in our elections is that there's a lot of secrecy. The commission does things that the electorate or the political parties do not know. So when there's inclusivity in decision making, when the commission is making a decision, everybody knows why that decision has been made, and there is a lot of discussion before a decision is arrived, that all parties are able to agree that that's the right way of moving. Number two, the issue of registration of voters. That should be a priority, because since the last time when there was a mass registration of voters, I don't remember when, but that is a key thing that the commission needs to do, so that those people who have reached the age of 18 and they have IDs, they are able to register. So that those are the two critical areas I'll put in place. And then I'll make sure that all the gadgets, the electoral infrastructure is working. The systems are working. They are put in place in time. They are tested on time before that day of election.
Okay, thank you so much. I only asked you for one. You have given me two, which is okay. Okay, the next one. The main prerequisite for conducting free, fair, and credible election is a peaceful environment where eligible voters can express their will freely without violence, threats, intimidation, or coercion. You agree with me on that?
I agree with you on that.
This can be achieved if electoral risks are promptly identified and mitigated.
Electoral?
Risks.
Risks, okay.
Yeah. So in your view, what are some of the operational risks IEBC has identified, especially in their 5-year strategic plan, and how will you mitigate the risk of low voter turnout?
One of the issues that comes up as a risk is misinformation to the public.
Operational risk.
Operational risk. Operational risk is the issue of systems to be used during elections. For example, in the last 2 general elections, our electronic system almost failed. It failed in some places. So we make sure that those risks are mitigated early enough.
That is technology risk. I want operational risk.
Okay, operational risk. The risks that are associated with the operations of the institution. The risks that we may be getting into when we get into election is that the commission, currently the commission may not have enough funding, so that we need funding on time, so that the commission is able to administer, to do its activities. For example, register voters, for example, voter education, for example, number 2.
Funding falls under financial risk.
Funding falls under financial risk.
Okay, we can move to the next question.
Yes.
Yeah, because I can see you are taking us round. So what framework of stakeholder engagement would you propose to promote inclusion of special interest groups, particularly people with disability in electoral process?
When we are dealing with stakeholders to make sure that people who are marginalized or disabled to participate in election, we map out our stakeholders, map out the partners who are so that we are able to reach to every corner or every part of the country, and assure and train or assure that people, and make sure that people who are marginalized are mobilized to come out. So we be able to use our partnership to mobilize those people so that they can come out and vote, they can come out and listen. So that is one of the key areas that I'll be able to use, map out my stakeholders, get those who have advantage or comparative advantage to reach out to those who are able to mobilize people. And number 2, develop a regulation that the same stakeholders will use to mobilize those, to mobilize the communities or the voters to be educated and come and vote.
Okay. So, Mr. Muket, you told us that you come from a pastoralist community.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you are appointed, what do you think you will put in place to support implementation of voter education to the pastoralists? Because you said they move from one place to the other. So how will you effectively carry out voter education in those areas?
As I said, critical in voter education is partnership with stakeholders. And in those areas, there are stakeholders who are comparative advantage in those pastoral areas. For example, when I was in West Pokot, I developed what you call district peacekeeping committees. I introduced. And those district peacekeeping committees were acceptable to the people all over. So you get from all corners of those areas and make sure that they are you give them, you regulate the activities to make sure that all those people are reached. So we use the local people, you use the local, and also you use the local stations, the media, and so on.
Okay, thank you. So in your view, do you think that there is full participation of women in the electoral process from the pastoralist areas?
In my view, not.
Okay.
Yes.
So if not, how can you improve it? Because they also have the right to exercise their democratic right of voting.
Yeah, they have the right to exercise the democratic right of voting. And as I said, we make sure that we bring them out, or what we call you smoke them out from wherever they are. And by using those people, especially the women groups, the groups of women, those NGOs that deal with women, we use them so that they can be able to come out and encourage them to come out to vote and even vie for election positions. So one of the key issues is that to make sure that they are involved. Number two, civic education, or you can call it voter education, but I like using civic education because it encompasses everything, including their rights as individuals. So we expand civic education in those areas, okay, so that they are able to be reached in all those places.
Okay, thank you.
And then number two, also address the men folk. The men folk, to know that even women also can be leaders. We approach through the men and encourage them to make sure that their women come up.
So can you kindly share with us what are some of the barriers stopping some of these women from effectively participating in elections?
One of the key barriers is cultural.
Culture?
Yes, culture.
Yeah.
There are some cultures where the women position is backseat.
Yeah.
They are not supposed to be in front. And even when they speak, they don't speak standing. They speak sitting down and facing the other direction. Like where I come from, women speak facing the opposite direction.
So when a woman is speaking, even your wife, she will turn her back to you?
They can sit down and turn. And of course, when they are sitting in a baraza,
yes, they
sit facing the opposite direction.
Okay.
Yes. So when they speak facing the opposite direction. They don't stand because of culture that has been inculcated for them. So one of the key issues that can be done is education.
Is education.
What we call girl-child education. So that they know when we have girls who are educated, they can see a woman like them who is educated and is ready and is able to speak with men face to face.
My main worry is that, yes, Mr. Muket, you are an educated person, you are highly educated, you are well informed. Why do you subject your wife to such culture that when she's talking to you, she needs to turn her back?
Of course, not my wife.
No, you've told us, yeah.
No, not my wife.
So what have you done
I have
in your community,
in my community
to change this culture?
In my community, like even the village where I come from.
I'm not yet through, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Because you don't have to wait to to be appointed commissioner at IBC to change a culture you know very well is affecting the women folk. You have daughters, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that such a culture will affect them. So what have you done as a person?
As a person, I'm also a preacher. I'm saved. I preach in church. So as a person, we have managed to encourage the ladies, the girls to go to school. Like in the village or in the location where I come from, I think all girls have gone to school. And everybody has gone to school. So that culture of talking, facing the other direction is no longer practiced. The religious organization also have done a lot, which have been involved as a religious person. We've gone round, make sure that the women come out. The people are told we are all equal before God.
Good.
None of us is subservient of the other. Before God, all are equal. And we've done our best.
Just out of curiosity, do you practice that also in church?
Which ones?
Women sitting facing the other side?
No, we
In
don't.
church?
We don't.
Okay,
But what is in church, what is still not very clear, is that in church there are several roles. There are roles for women and there are roles for men.
Thank you.
That is what still.
So apart from culture, I can see time is not on our side.
Yes.
What are the other barriers?
The traditional practices.
Okay.
Yes. Like in most cases where we have FM, female genital FGMs, those are some of the practices that make women feel they're inferior.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is all?
Well, there are many.
Okay, thank you so much.
Because of
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'll now request the Vice Chair to ask a few questions.
Yes, Mr. Muket, you're an accomplished livestock specialist.
Yes.
And very passionate for that profession.
Mm-hmm.
What moves you to consider going to sit in a commission that deals with electoral issues? What is the motivating factor?
Number one, Mr. Choki, is that in life, you reach a point where you want to get a challenge, something that is challenging to your career. So that's one of the critical things. I have done livestock. I've been in livestock. I was in livestock for almost 25 years as a livestock specialist, even now, because that's my profession. But in life, you reach a point where you want something that is challenging. And I've also worked, as I served in the Transition Authority. It's opened my eyes to know that we are able to, we can be able to venture into other areas. And most critical one, as I've said, I've conducted elections for quite a number of time. But my turning point was 2007. After conducting very nice election where I was presiding, I came back to my house. And I was locked in my house for a whole week without food, without water. I could not get out because I was in Eldoret. And I felt something must be done with our electoral process. And that's why I developed an interest to make sure that our electoral processes are fair. You can see they are practical. People can believe in it. They are believable. When I lose election, I believe I have lost fairly and I concede. And I say this next time. So that it's not time where I can say, no, I didn't lose fairly because I saw some malpractices. So that is my turning point when I was locked inside the house for a week, no food, no water.
So you mentioned 2007
Yes.
as a turning point. What happened in 2007 that would make you feel like going to the commission? And when you get there, what would you do to correct those anomalies you saw in 2007? What are those challenges? What are the issues? What did you see in 2007 that went wrong that you'd like to correct by being a commissioner?
In 2007, the political parties never believed on those results that were being transmitted or announced. And then number two, they felt there was manipulation of results, transporting it from the polling station to, especially the presidential election, to the national tallying center. There was a feeling that there was some doctoring along the way. And it was also made worse by the former chairman, who said, I don't know what those officers are doing, they may be doctoring. You know, that inculcated some doubt, even in the minds of those people who are competing. So, and that caused the mayhem we had. And then the competitiveness of the competitive nature of our elections. And then number two, also the issue of, I don't know what to call ethnicity that operates in our systems. That affected the 2007 general election. But my urge or my drive, as I get into the commission, which I hope I'll get, is to make sure that our results are believable by making them transparent. Everybody sees what's happening, and when you get 10 votes, you know you have gotten 10. There's nothing, because I believe election is like 1, 2, 3, 1 plus 1. Why should 1 plus 1 be 3 instead of 1 plus 1 being 2? And I believe that we can be able to make election to be 1 plus 1 is equals to 2, not 1 plus 1 is equal to 3.
Maybe you could tell Kenyans how you do that.
Yes.
Because it appears it's been very difficult to have 1 plus 1 be equal to 2 with our elections, especially the presidential results. How do you make sure that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 and that it's not 100?
I don't know. I'm a mathematician also. I like maths. I don't see why 1 plus 1 should be 3. Because when you are in a polling station, for example, our laws allows the presiding officer to send the results, the presidential results, from the polling station to the national tallying center. And at the polling station, the presiding officer plus all the agents, they signed those results, and they saw it, they see it. They see it being counted, they see it being tallied, and they signed. I don't see the reason why the same form which was signed in my Kokwapelekwa polling station cannot be the same when it comes to Bomas.
Now,
so it should be the same.
Yeah, that's the crux of the matter.
Yes.
What goes wrong? What goes wrong? How do we correct those errors as a commission? How do we make sure those things don't happen? What kind of systems would you put in place? Because that's the crux of the matter. Yeah.
The people we put in place, those election officials we put in place, should be able to be people who are trustworthy, who are faithful to what they are doing. And then number two, we have introduced what we call electronic transmission. The system should be tamper-proof, so that when you send results from my Kokwapelekwa polling center, the same results comes to Nairobi, and the same agent sends the same results to the agent in Nairobi, and they tally.
Now, with all those good ideas and intentions, you become a commissioner, and you find an environment where people are partisan. We are now in 2022. The commission is divided completely along partisan lines. Those good ideas and ideals, but nobody wants to listen to you. How would you handle that? Because that has been a problem.
In my small way, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll use my influence to make sure that the ideas I have are acceptable. The ideas, because all of us take an oath of office to be impartial. When we read someone and we become partial, then we have also failed in our oath of office. So I'll use my influence to make sure that my colleagues are impartial and they understand where we are coming from, and they understand their partiality, what will happen to the country, where they will take the country with their partiality. So that we all understand that if I am partisan, where will my country be tomorrow? You know, you can gratify yourself today and the country burns tomorrow because of your partisanship.
Finally, Mr. Muket, IEBC in its vision seeks to be a credible electoral management body. How would you contribute to making IEBC a credible electoral management body if you're on that commission?
Yes, I said earlier on when I was starting, I said, I believe in what you call participatory decision-making, whereby all our stakeholders participate in what happens with the commission. Even as the commission is independent, we make sure that the decisions we make are acceptable to our stakeholders, the political parties, the voters, the citizens. Our decisions are acceptable to everybody, so that they know, because when they have been told over time that this is what's happening in the commission, this is what we are doing, they know what we are doing. So that even when it comes to voting, they know these guys are transparent, because there's an issue of transparency which is lacking. I need to inculcate the issue of transparency in the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Muket.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I'll now request Reverend Father Mutia to ask you a few questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Muket.
Good morning, Father.
Allow me to begin by just asking very simple, because I need some clarity. In your application, you stated that you are a person living with a disability. Could you kindly just explain the kind of disability or anything to do with your disability?
Yes, I have a plate in my femur. In 2004, I got an accident, a road accident, where I broke my femur and they fixed a plate which is still there up to today. It has not been removed. It is still there because it supports me in walking.
You said it is in 2004.
2004,
when
yes.
You got that.
Yes.
And are you a registered person with the council?
I think I wrote even in my application that I have not registered, because I'm a believer, not of somebody who doesn't want to be sympathized with. I want to work hard. Even if I'm disabled, I work hard so that nobody sympathizes me because I am disabled. I'm not sympathize. You get this, you get this. I don't believe in that. I believe in working hard at whatever level God has put you. God has allowed you. God allowed me to get that accident. And I don't think it has affected me so much that I'm not able to work. I may not work as I used to work, but it has not affected me to earn a living.
So, Mr. Muket, do you have some agendas that you advance for the people with disability?
Yes. One of the agenda is that disability is not inability. When a person is disabled, I don't see why you should sit on the road begging. And you have your head is still working, your hands may still be working.
I mean, do you speak for people with disability?
I do. I do.
On what areas?
As I said, I speak to them on working hard, using whatever is available to you to earn a living. So I've attended so many of their meetings, and even they take me as one of them.
So, sir.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges that people with disability face when it comes to elections?
Okay, I can mention some few challenges. One is movement in the polling station. The other day, I don't know, that was in Kiamba, I saw somebody being carried on a chair. I felt that was not right. When two people were carrying a lady, and I chair these kind of chairs. So those are some of the challenges. Number two, if you are visually impaired, our ballot papers do not provide for brailles. And I think when I get to the commission, we'll be able to see how can we introduce brailles in our ballot papers. Some percentage of brailled papers, so that those who are visually impaired, they are able to vote without being assisted. Because the person assisting you, you may not believe, people who are not trustworthy. The person assisting you may do something that you don't like. He may have taken an oath, because they take an oath, I'm assisting this person. But are you sure whether what you told him to do, he has done it, and you are visually impaired? So those are some of the things I can be able to bring on board. And I say the movement in the polling station should enable people with disability to reach the polling place and vote.
So, for the last over 15 years, you've been in that situation.
Yes.
What have you done? You've held senior positions in terms of leadership in those areas where you did serve. What are some of the things you did to advance their agenda?
One of the areas I participated or have helped is when I was working in West Pokot, and I used to have a meeting with those disabled, with those people who are differently able. We don't call them disabled; they are differently able. So I used to work with them, and I supported them in their businesses. Using the resources we had, I supported them in their businesses. Those who are cobblers, I supported those who are cobblers. And in my small way, I have managed to raise quite a number of them. And then number two, I also managed to talk to parents with the children with disability. Because most parents tend to hide them. Either they put them in the house, they don't want people to see it, to inform them that he is or she is a human being. She's not a lesser person. She's a person who needs to come out, go to school, and do what she is able to do. Yes.
Now, this is a general one, eh?
Yes.
In your view, what's the difference between ethics and integrity?
Ethics is a sum total of a person, which includes his integrity, includes accountability, includes his faithfulness, includes his hard work, includes his work ethics or working norms. So the ethics are collaborated with that. Integrity is part of ethics. Is this person, how does the person take himself? How do you carry in yourself day in, day out? Are you a person who carries himself?
So according to you, which
Yes.
one is more important, integrity or ethics?
Well, I cannot put a mark because if you are ethical, you also have integrity. So they are all similar. Such that if a person, you say this guy is ethical, he's able to do things in an ethical manner, he has integrity.
So can you enforce integrity?
It is inborn. It is, inbuilt. That there are things you can do to enforce them. Because, for example, if you steal or if you do this, there's a punishment for it. So, but although it is difficult to enforce integrity, somebody develops in his life. For example, when you get saved, you develop it and you follow it.
So ni maadili gani ambao unaenzi?
Mimi naenzi uaminifu, uwajibikaji, uadilifu, kufanya kazi kwa bidii na kufanya kazi kwa kikundi, what we call teamwork.
Na kama kiongozi ukiwa katika jamii ama kikundi ambacho mambo haya ambayo unayoyaenzi hayafuatiliwi, utafanya nini?
Kama mambo haya ambayo ninayaamini au dhamini haifuatiliwi, naitoa, nasema ndugu yangu, hapa na hapa umeenda kombo, kama inawezekana turekebishe. So mimi nitasema, nitaona venye imeenda kando, tuweze kurekebisha pamoja, kwa sababu mimi kama Mkristo pia mimi ni mshauri ama kansela. So nikiwa mshauri na mshauri watu, kama unaona mtu ameenda kando, unaambia ndugu yangu, yeye anaweza kufanya hii na hii na uweze kubadilika.
Na kama if somebody wants to compromise you, for example, we know money has a lot of when it comes to issues money, there is a lot of temptation, and many people change when they get to positions. What would happen to you when such people come to you, or they are in your group? What would happen?
Two things. One, people look at you. They know how you conduct yourself day in, day out. They know whether you are compromisable or not compromisable. If you are not compromisable, they will never even approach you. And even if they approach you and you say them, no, this and this is wrong, my ethics or my faith does not allow me to do this. So I'll be able to stand my ground and say I will not do that, because my ethics and my faith and my everything doesn't allow it. And then number two, whenever you reach in a place, but that's something I've learned in life. When you go to a new place, you tell them what you believe in. For example, if I go to a new place and tell them I'm saved, people will start respecting me because I'm saved, and they know what they can tell me and what they cannot tell me. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Muket. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Reverend Father. Mr. Muket?
Yes, madam.
It's time for me to ask you a general knowledge question.
Thank you.
I heard you mention how for 1 week you were forced to stay in the house without food or drink during the post-election violence.
Yes.
So my question relates to that time. Following the post-election violence of 2007 and 2008, the panel of eminent persons that was led by the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan set up 2 commissions to investigate matters relating to that process. Which were these 2 commissions?
There was IREC, which was led by Johan Kriegler, and then there was the Waki Commission, which was looking at post-election violence. The Kriegler one was looking at election processes. Yes.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of your oral interview. I'll invite you at this time to make any remarks you may have to the panel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe before I make my remarks, there is something that has been trending and disturbing me, and I think I'll ask Mr. Kimuli. I've been hearing of what we call protected constituencies. I've tried to see which law gives that protected constituencies. I have not seen it. Maybe Mr. Kimuli, since I know you're the lawyer here, you can educate me. Number 2, before you do that, there was also a question that is a law that exempts cabinet secretaries from being apolitical. I've tried to look for it, I have not seen it.
Thank you very much. Maybe when we have dealt with quite a number of those issues here during the interviews, when we get out here, I can give you a small invoice and then I'll answer.
Thank you.
How much is your invoice? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I am grateful that you gave me the opportunity to appear in this panel, and being shortlisted is a privilege. And let me also say for the records, this is my second time to appear. I appeared in 2016 in the interview panel, although that time I was not successful. But appearing the second time gives me the courage to know that I am qualified. If I can be shortlisted twice, out of that time there were also 700 applicants, this time there were almost also 700 applicants, that gives me a courage that I'm able to do it. Otherwise, let me say I've enjoyed interacting with you, because this is a team that taken this work with dignity and with the transparency it requires. So, Madam Chair, I'll admit to say thank you, and may God bless you, and the work you're doing for this nation. I know you've been working in other parts, in other sections of this of the country, and the work you've done for this nation and your team, I'm so grateful that you gave me the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muket. And also on our behalf, as a panel, and on behalf of the people of this nation, we also express our gratitude for you expressing an interest to serve as an IEBC commissioner. It's an important role, and we don't take it for granted that you felt patriotic enough to do so. So we do wish you well, and God bless you too. I'll ask a member of the Secretariat to come and escort you. Please ensure they return to you all your original documents, and we wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you. We'll now take a break until 11:30 for our next interview.